us. So without further ado, let me introduce Greer Hendricks, our guest for Columbia Fiction Foundry's Distinguished Speaker Series. Greer has been very generous with her time to Columbia, where she received her master's in journalism. And we have had the pleasure of following her career. She moved from 20 years as editor and vice president of Simon & Schuster to starting her own company, Atria Books, before writing The Wife Between Us.
Wait, sorry, I have to interrupt.
Yes,
I did not start. Atria Books was a division at Simon & Schuster before, and I didn't start it.
Okay.
So, okay.
Anytime I say something, don't jump me in.
I just don't want anyone to think I took my former boss would be like, what the heck?
Okay.
Yes. Okay. No. So that was at Simon & Schuster. It's a division. Okay, keep going.
Thank you. I was impressed when I realized, whoa, it's a book. I know. Before writing her debut novel, The Wife Between Us, co-written with Sarah Pakkanen, and The Wife Between Us, which was her very first novel, spent 26 weeks combined on the New York Times bestseller list in all forums, and at last count has sold into 36 countries. It was optioned for film by Steven Spielberg's Amblin Pick Partners, with Greer and Sarah contracted to write the screenplay, I believe. And so today we are here to discuss, and by the way, a lot of past interviews are on YouTube, and there's a lot of fascinating information, so you can look that up. Today we're here to discuss her new bestseller, An Anonymous Girl, which she also co-wrote with Sarah Pakkanen. And Anonymous Girl debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, where it's been a mainstay in the top 5 for 2 months and counting. It's been called...
It dropped off this week.
It dropped off this week. Well, we're here to boost it. Okay, this is a boost event. And we have copies in the back. Thank you, Columbia Bookstore.
Every copy counts.
And Spirit can sign at the end, so that's really nice. Okay, so is there anything else you want to say by way of introduction, or should we jump into the questions?
I just want to say thank you all. Thank you all for coming, and this is my third time being here, and I'm really happy to be back.
Oh, well, thank you. It really is generous of you. I can't imagine. One of the questions that we're going to leave to a little bit later is, how did you make time to be here today, and what are you up to? What are you up to? You know, but we'll get to that. So first, let's just start a little bit back in the beginning, because you and Sarah have a really interesting story about how you came to know one another and write books together. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so I love this story. It's like our origin story, right? Every relationship has an origin story. And if she were here, we've got it's literally like the When Harry Met Sally kind of version of it. Yeah, but yeah. So like Tania said, I was a book editor for 20 years at Simon & Schuster, and one day I was submitted a debut novel by Sarah Pakkanen, and I loved it, but I wasn't alone. There were a lot of other editors who were interested as well.
Interesting.
And so her agent took her around to meet the interested editors, and Sarah and I immediately hit it off, and I persevered and I acquired her book. And so we went on to work on 7 books together during my time at Simon & Schuster. And over the years, it was interesting. We discovered we had a number of uncanny similarities. So we were both the exact same age. We both had studied psychology and journalism. We both had played field hockey in high school. We're both terrible cooks. We both have brothers we're really close to, who are both named Robert.
Wow.
I mean, weird. That's weird, right? Everyone agree? That's weird. So we got really close, and then when I decided to leave corporate publishing, in the back of my mind, I wanted to write, but I really wasn't telling many people, because that's a bit, you guys aren't, right? Everyone here, most people here want to write. Like, it's a really scary thing to say, because there's a lot of you know, you might not succeed. But I did, Sarah and I stayed in touch, and I confessed the secret to her. And she said, and this is where if you were her, you'd be like, we should write a book together. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why does she want to write a book with me? Like, she's written 7 books on her own. And she said, I think we could do something really magical together. Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, I can keep going and talk more about because
you can
ask questions, but I can go through the you want to know a little bit more about the process, like what happened after that, or?
Yeah, well, one of the things you talked about having strikingly similar narrative instincts and approaches to storytelling.
Yeah.
And so I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that, in what ways you'd say you have similar instincts and approaches, in what ways they might differ, and how they kind of complement each other.
Sure. So what was interesting is that when we were trying to decide what to write, if you looked at Sarah's past books, they were all like quote unquote, I feel like women's fiction. And that's actually primarily what I edited, like Jennifer Weiner, I edited like the Nanny Diaries and authors.
Can I interrupt you for a second, just for those of us? What is women's fiction?
I don't know. It's like a term that I think they slap on for like commercial women's fiction, so people know what they're. I think it just means that it sells and it's by a woman. It's such a. I think it's just a way to market.
You know, though, I love that answer, because here is someone who's been 20 years in the publishing industry, and she didn't give us a super great definition.
Sorry.
So no, that's actually really helpful because it's very confusing to those of us on the outside.
Right, what that means.
Right. So
it's sort of derogatory, but it's sort of like.
Well, no, we're going to change that.
Okay.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
No, it isn't.
It's a compliment.
No.
Okay. Well, and I think that's kind of what she wrote. That's what I edited. But when we went to try to decide what we wanted to write, we both went to our bookshelves. So, a key component here is that Sarah lives in Washington, D.C. So, and I'm here in Manhattan. We both went to our bookshelves, and we took our favorite books down off, from the last few years off our bookshelves, and we both laid them out on our tables, and there was a lot of overlap, and what we noticed was that most of the books were psychological nature with strong female protagonists.
Tell me the name of a couple of yours.
Okay, a few, like S.J. Watson's.
Wait, we gotta write this down.
S.J. Watson's, Something Go to Sleep. What was it? How I Go to Sleep? When I Go to Sleep? I'm blanking.
Hey, we need to sleep. We'll find it.
Okay, you'll find S.J. Watson. It's really, really good. We had a lot of Leanne Moriarty. We had Jean Hennef Corlitz, You Should Have Known. We had Gone Girl and Girl on a Train. Of course. Those.
Cool. Okay,
so
interesting.
And even if we didn't have the exact same books, there were themes that appeared. So that is how we are similar. And then, as I feel like I have to do this in sort of an order, but basically, like when we decided to write, we kind of early on decided we wanted to write every line together. So most collaborators, they'll alternate chapters, or they'll each take on a different character. But we knew we wanted to do this together. But the question then was, well, how are we going to do this exactly? And so we had our first writing binge section. Sarah came up to New York. We holed up in this like hotel room. We wrote like 15 manic pages, and we thought they were so good. We were like, we're going to set the publishing world on fire. Because I'm sorry, I'm all over the place, but we had come up with a lightning bolt idea. So how many of you have read my first book? Right Between Us. Okay, just a few. Well, there's a big twist at the end of part one, right? Anyone who's read it knows that. That was the impetus for that book. So we had a great idea, but you know what? You can have a great idea. It doesn't mean you can write a book, right? It doesn't mean. But
come up with a big idea is actually. Can I just slow you down a second on that? Like, how did you guys come up with an idea together? I mean, was that just kind of brainstorming, batting it back and forth, and then it sort of congealed?
Yeah, I mean, basically like I said, we were both really interested in psychology, and so the basis I feel like of all our books is that like psychological nature. But it was like this idea of perception and memory, and we were thinking a lot about characters. So again, like how many of you guys watched The Affair? Anyone watch The Affair? A little bit. Okay. So that idea where you've got the season 1, I think it's episode 1, where you have Noah. He goes into the restaurant and he sees Allison, and in his view, she's in like this short skirt. She's really flirty. And then the second, then you flip perspectives, and it's Allison, and she's in a modest dress, and it's just sort of friendly. Isn't that life, right? Like we're all here. We're all going to take away our own interpretations.
Right. Or you could have a memory with your sister where you're like, oh, I remember exactly what happened. Like, no, that's not what happened.
That
did that. That's a fascinating concept.
So we took it, and for anyone who read the book knows we turned it on our head. We did this in a very different way that, honestly, I was like, this is pretty genius. I just say, you know, it's like I've had one genius idea in my life, and I feel like that was it. So we were super excited by that idea, but then we had to build a whole book around it, because it really isn't. It's great, but it wasn't enough. So we write these 15 pages that were so, we found them. They are so embarrassingly bad. So all I'm going to say for all of you out there is just like revise, and like, but we were in that manic state of like, we were like having a love affair of like, this is so fun.
That's
and, you
so
know,
great. I need that.
We
You
do.
know, you gotta keep that.
we still
gotta
gotta
keep.
keep.
Do you have? That's
Well, I'll come back.
Yeah.
But anyway, we wrote this 15 pages. They were terrible. But
When did you realize? Did you guys like it? Like I know if I look at my first drafts, I know they're going to be terrible. I don't need someone to tell me.
no, we needed someone to
You did. You see, I needed someone to tell you. Okay.
We sent them to. We used Sarah's agent, and maybe we wrote 25 pages, and she. Sorry, it's so embarrassing. But she was just like, you know, like what exactly is it? Like she's like, is this like Mr. and Mrs. Bridge? Is this like she's throwing out all these genres? And we're like we were really missing the mark. If like she had no idea.
Okay, but that's
not-
also, you know what else is interesting there?
I'm very honest. I'm telling you guys this. Like I know probably most writers are like would not be as. But yeah.
No, it's fabulous for us, and thank you for that. But also, what strikes me is you're saying this is the first 25 pages. Okay, that's not a lot. So basically, the first 25 pages you give them to her agent, and on the basis of that, she is able to say, like, I need
This is so bad.
No, but what she's saying is that this is for us really helpful.
Yeah.
On the basis of that first 25 pages, I need to know what this book is about.
Yes.
That's really helpful information.
Look at you. Yes, that's smart. Yes. So I think she didn't really want to dissuade us, but she did want to give us like a little bit of a reality of that. And part of it was Sarah was also still under contract with Simon Schuster to write more books, and I really needed to know if I needed a day job because, like, you know, I need to pay the bills. So we were also in a little bit in a frenzy because we kind of wanted to just know if there was anything, you know, if there was something to this. So we wrote more, and gradually we started to kind of figure out what we were doing, partially because our agent, who is not an editor, put us in touch with a freelance editor, Benet Muir, who I gave you her name.
Yeah.
And Benet, I feel like, was able to explain to us, like, you have this, there was so much that was working, but how to kind of, she kept us saying we need to slow the pace down to draw out the dramatic tension. Because we were trying to write a psychological thriller, but it wasn't really feeling like a psychological thriller. I think that was the main problem. And she taught us how to do that. Now we know how to do that.
Nice.
And she'd say, here's a scene, slow this down.
That's so helpful.
It was really, she was could just go in. So it wasn't so much the ideas, but just kind of scene by scene. So that was really helpful.
So let me again backtrack a little bit on that. So you come together, you come up with your concept, you come up with your idea. Now, at what point did you plot out a strong, really solid outline, plot outline?
Yeah. Okay, so let me just go back to one thing, which is that because she's in DC and I'm New York, and we did want to write every line together, my daughter, who at the time was 13, was like, so, well, Mom, there's this thing called Google Hangouts and Google Docs, which we didn't know what it was. So that is what enables us to write every line together. So for anyone who doesn't know, I mean, basically, Sarah's in DC, I'm in New York, and we're looking at the same. We're both looking at our computer screens, but we're seeing the exact same, the same words, and we can go in and we can edit and highlight and put suggested mode, and we talk over the computer too.
I read this, and I have a really hard time conceptualizing just the logistics of. Okay, so you got the document, you're both talking, you look at the same document, but someone has to actually type.
She does more of the typing.
Oh,
we take turns,
okay.
But she is a much faster typer. And so the majority of the time she's typing, but I'll also be, it's just weird because I will also just start typing stuff too. It's a weird twin. Literally yesterday, there were 3 things that came up yesterday. Let me see if I can remember. We were trying to come up with a street, and at the same time, she said 56th Street, I said 57th Street. Of any street, like why we both picked this up. Then we both were looking for a type of food to serve at a restaurant. We both said Asian fusion. And what was the third thing? The third thing, I forget what it was, but it was a phrase. We were really in our weird twin mode.
This is actually, you have to write a book about the book. But for those of us who don't have this relationship, anyone in our lives, and actually probably never will.
No.
What advice can you offer us if we don't have a magic twin soul sister brother?
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you because I couldn't write these books if I didn't have my magic soul security twins. This is specific to us. But wait, I feel like you asked me something. I'm jumping all around.
No. That's great. I mean, and I guess
outlining. You asked about outlining.
Oh, I did, and then
Okay.
I want to ask. Okay, then I want to jump ahead to the comparison between the two books a little bit too,
Okay.
which is also jumping around with my question, but I think it's relevant. So.
Outlining. We wrote part one. I think we kind of tried to outline part one, and
I'm going to stop for just 1 second. For those of you who might, so is this? Can we assume that, or did you follow the same process for the second book? So when you're telling us about the first book now, but like technically we're supposed to be talking about the second book.
Okay.
So did you, in terms of the process, did you follow it, or did you learn something from the first process that you changed in the second one?
So the first, because we sold it to a publisher based on part one, and an outline for 2 and 3, we had.
Okay, wait a second. Stop that. Okay, so you sold the first book based on your right, and I know it wasn't complete. That which is unusual. That's not going to happen to any of us. Forget it. Just okay.
But that was because she had written 7 books.
Yes.
I was an editor, and the big twist is I keep teasing that for those of you who haven't read it. There's a big twist at the end of part 1, and it was we knew that if we ended on that twist, and then we wrote an outline for 2 and 3, like that was going to be pretty sellable. And again, I needed to know if I needed a job. Like I had to know what was going on. So we do have a similar process. So first of all, we do that Google Docs, Google Hangouts.
Okay.
We go to each other's cities, although now we've been meeting in Philly, and we like to get giant Post-its and try to outline and whiteboard. Like
So that change. That's both.
That was both.
Okay,
That's both. We try to outline, but there's something almost weirdly serendipitous about our process, because I feel like there's like things percolate in our subconscious that we don't know are going to be plot twists, or that they're going to or that it's going to be meaningful later on.
I just have to tell you that what you just said, I wish I could write that down, but we have it recorded.
Okay.
Because that's a really super helpful thing to hear. You know, because there's always this question about how much do you really plot it out ahead of time, and everyone knows that things evolve and they change.
Yeah, a lot.
But it's kind of remarkable for me to hear that based on the fact that this is a very tightly plotted book. This is not not loosely structured.
Yeah.
So did you have kind of bullet points you wanted to hit, like marks you wanted to hit, or was it really that it evolved as you went along?
I feel like there were bullet points, but they were loose bullet points.
Wow, okay. So not what I would have thought. I mean, you know.
I'm also, I've got to tell you, I'm so in the throes of book 3, which has been a disaster. Such a complete disaster that.
Well, let's talk about that.
That it's been so tough that, and I feel like we tried to do book 3 the way we did 1 and 2.
Oh, wow.
And it didn't work. So I'd like to say, I wish I could say to you all, if you do X, Y, and Z, it will always work, but it doesn't.
But that's also helpful.
It's like children. Like if any of you children.
That's exactly
each
right.
their own
These are
little-
all our children, aren't they?
They are.
They are.
So you love parts of them, and then oh my god. So book 3 is really a troubled child at the moment. Yeah. And by the way, the characters' last names are more. Some of the characters are more. They're these 2 sisters. And more. M-O-R-E. So I'm telling you that maybe we're a little psychic.
I'm sorry.
Actually, Sarah thinks she's psychic, so maybe she's
Well, no, clearly, of course, you guys are psychic. That has been established to like an alarming degree. That's so interesting. So why? No, I mean, I've often heard like a first book. You know, it's the first book. The second book is challenging, but you guys had this. You know, so why do you? Can we dig into that? Like, why do you think? What's different? What changed?
Okay, for a few things. First of all, we are been busy promoting 2 other books, so that our sacred time, we normally work from 9 to 4, has been it's not sacred anymore, because we are doing interviews, or we're touring, or we're doing pre-tours, so we don't have as much time. It feels choppier. That's number 1. Number 2.
Okay, I'm gonna just pause you every now and then.
Yeah.
Okay, because I just like for the rest of us, just to hear you say that. It's hard when things are choppy. When your writing schedule is choppy, Greer Hendricks is telling us it's hard. Okay, so it's okay. It's okay. And it's hard. Maybe like full-time jobs and full-time parenting, and we're trying to fit our writing in. So you know what? That's actually very validating to hear that.
That's hard. Well, my other piece of advice is that you do have to have. Well, I'm a very structured person, so you have to have that time. You have to put that time in your calendar, or it's not going to happen. Because you'll do the laundry, you'll answer emails, you go for a run, whatever it is that's your escape.
That's right.
And so one of the things that has helped me, and even if you don't have a writing partner, is to have some sort of accountability. Maybe you just have a friend where you say to that friend, I'm going to be writing from 9 to 10 or 9 to 12, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
So for us, we have that accountability because we get on the phone and you can't be doing your laundry or checking Instagram or doing other things because we're literally on, I can even tell if she's I can tell if she's getting tired, you can just tell. Mm-hmm. So that I would say it's just really important to have that structure. But our time we didn't have as much structure. We came up with an idea. I think what we started to do, how do I explain this? I feel like most of the 2 other books are kind of a simple premise that then got twisty turned. And I think we kind of came at it backwards and we started to try to come up with too many twists and turns. And it made it too complicated.
Okay,
and
that's very helpful too.
And the other thing that happened, and this could happen to anybody, is that we actually read a book that seemed remarkably similar to the book we were writing. Even the same main character's name, and there's so many weird similarities, and frankly, that book we felt like actually didn't work. And so it's sort of a warning sign to us about where we were going. We had written about a third of our book, and we were like, okay, I think we're going to maybe run into the same problems. And we knew we were having problems because it just wasn't coming as easily. And so we had to completely take a big step back and replot the book and rejigger it.
But good for you for being able to recognize that, because I think you've invested that much in it, and you also, and actually, honestly, you had the pressure of so much success, which can be pressure.
It is pressure.
I mean, there's expectations. being. I always say the greatest gift I have is failure, because it gives me complete freedom. But you don't have that. Yeah. So
there's only one way to go but down at this point. We did good number 1.
But to have the courage. I mean, what's interesting here to me is the honesty you're bringing to this conversation. Yeah. And to have the honesty to be able to say, hello, maybe this isn't working, and step aside. And come at it differently. That's that takes a lot.
Yeah. Well, and that's again having somebody also, even if you don't have a writing partner, maybe someone else can read your work and just give you validation. We both knew there was a problem. And it's hard. It was really hard. There's a lot of pages. I actually feel sort of sick to my stomach sometimes. I'm so many pages that we just are not going to use.
But some of us have whole novels that we write, so it's actually okay,
enjoy the process.
It is the process.
I know,
to some extent.
I know, and it is a lot of pressure. And we won't publish a book that we don't feel really good about, because we had a lot to live up to from the first book, and we were so proud of the second. Many people said it was better than the first, and so now we've got the third, and then Sarah the other day, she's like, what if it's just a B+? Can we settle for a B+ book? And I was like, I don't know.
And do you feel, it's interesting that you said that you sort of had a similar concept with both books, that they started with, concept and then twisted. Mm-hmm. And so do you feel that formula has a bad sound to it, but do you feel you kind of have a formula that works that you want to stick with, or maybe you feel you've done that and you want to try something different? I
think we're nimble. We've always said we might not write the next book might not be a psychological thriller. If that doesn't, I mean the one we're doing is, and it probably will be, but if that's not what we're feeling, we know we will always write things that are psychological, because that's just what we're drawn to. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to be, we're not wedded to anything except we say to each other. Yeah, I know. Actually, this is kind of corny, but so even though when Sarah asked me if we wanted to write together, I paused. I made her wait 12 hours. She loves that story. She's like, she always says to my husband, John, did Greer make you wait when you proposed to her? And which I didn't. But then for the celebration of our first book, I had these necklaces made. This is a circle for forever friendship, and I had the colors of our book, the first book, and then I added a charm in the second one. So we always say there's room for many more. So hopefully we can write the third book. Okay.
Yeah, okay. That's fascinating. And in terms of Anonymous Girl, it is very psychologically driven. how much research did you have to do? I mean, I know you had a background in journalism and sort of psychology,
major.
but still, I don't think we're giving any too much away if we talk about just the beginning of the book. Anyhow, that it's for those of you. How many of you have read it? Okay. Oh, good. Well, this is really They got both. Yeah.
I read both my books.
So it begins when Jessica Farris is a young girl who signs up for a psychology study conducted by the mysterious Dr. Shields, thank you. And who's a woman. So things quickly become. Dr. Shields, what? Am I giving something away? I am? You don't find that? When did you find that out?
Okay,
Like
that's
after page 10?
No, a little later. That's
really?
okay.
Oh my God! See, I told her I would have to be no spoilers. I'm not going to talk about this. Wow. And I guess you know what? I probably lifted that from in here where they do not say in the book copy.
We don't. We're
Oh wow. Okay, so this is such a great theme.
Okay.
Anyway, the things quickly become complicated. That's not saying very much. And what started out as a simple survey becomes something far more nefarious. So this is such an interesting example of that it's so grounded in so much that's real, but then there are things that aren't very realistic, and that's a really it's interesting how you straddle those, that line and that balance. And I wondered if you thought about that, if it evolved, how much research you did.
Yeah. So we always say that we would like to write these relatable characters, like Jessica. Jess seems like a pretty relatable character.
Jessica's very relatable.
And then we put them in these situations that we're like, oh, could this kind of could happen? Not really, but I mean, basically, Jess signs up for this. She sneaks into a survey on morality and ethics, and yes, there's irony there, right? By this mysterious Dr. Shields, and Dr. Shields she goes into this empty NYU classroom, and these questions begin to creep across the computer screen. Have you ever hurt someone you love? Would you ever? Should a punishment always fit the crime? Like weird questions. And then Dr. Shields pretty soon asks Jessica to take these morality questions to the next level, and Jess is doing these real life morality experiments. So, so we loved doing the research on the psychology. We do sprinkle real life psychology experiments in there that inform what Dr. Shields is trying to is asking Jess, and that was really fun to do that research. That's probably the only.
So how would you do that? You just Google psychology experiments?
Yeah,
and then
we were trying to find...
Was that generative too? And
yes.
Gave you ideas?
Yeah, and then trying to find psychology experiments that fit the themes that we were looking for.
Okay.
So we might look up, so perception or whatever the thing was, and then try to fit that.
And as a journalist, that must have been right in your wheelhouse.
I love doing that. That was that was super fun for me. And then we also, both of us have been in therapy. I'm not that. So, we have experience with, seeing a therapist and sort of that weird dynamic of being really intrigued by your therapist. That's it. And wondering, are they, is your psychiatrist psychiatrist intrigued by you?
Well, some of us have had inappropriate relationships with a therapist.
Oh.
So, something like to tell us. I think many of us. They're not all healthy. So, that's a very rich vein. It's mine.
And we deliberately, I don't know if you're going to ask this, but I'm going to tell everyone, that we wrote the Dr. Shields sections in the second person.
Yes, I definitely want to ask that.
Yeah.
Okay, well
that was very deliberate.
Well, let me just, so for the, so it is an alternating point of view, where Jess is first person.
Yeah.
And Dr. Shields is in second person, which is that's an unusual decision, that's an unusual choice, narrative choice. So I'm really curious what your thinking was about that. And it works, it really works.
Well, we wanted the reader, one of our goals was to have a real sense of immediacy for the reader, to feel like they were being forced to answer these questions alongside Jess. So, and I hope that as the reader, you do feel that way. You start to answer these questions. Do I believe there's punishment choice with the crime? Have I done this and I did that? And so to have that second person, that also just added to that immediacy. Here's, I guess, another tip. We did write the sections, each section, in the first person, the second person, and the third person, both Jess and the therapist. We wrote sections of it in different perspectives to see which one worked the best.
Oh, that again! I'm flagging this in my own mind because that's a lot of work.
Yeah,
that's a lot of work to really take the time and commit to that. What I'm hearing here is a lot of discipline and a lot of doing the work. like, you know, what I'm hearing again and again is, sure, you can have the idea, you can do this, you can do that, but at the end of the day, you got to do the work. You got to show up and do the work.
Yeah.
And that's like,
And you've got to find the best way. Like what was going to be the right way to tell this story.
yeah.
We did that, and that's a part of the book now too. We really were struggling with one whole point of view and how to do it. And we've also been sort of kind of going back and forth about and doing a lot of reading. Like we reread The Firm, or at least the beginning of The Firm, because that we thought might help us with the third book for various reasons. Like just going back and rereading like Stephen King's On Writing, or reading like we've got this plot and structure book that we like.
Which one do you like?
I think it might just be called Plot and Structure,
Okay.
actually. Do you know that
Yeah.
book? Is that what it's called?
I think so.
And sometimes it just kind of, even though you know, she's written up, you know, now 10 books, that you think that this becomes second nature, but sometimes it just reminds you, like, what's the engine? What are the things, if something's not working, you know, trying to identify what that piece of the puzzle is.
Yeah, I love the way you're talking about this sort of very interactive process with the process.
Yeah.
You know, that it's
Yes,
intuitive,
yes,
but then
yes,
you pull back
yeah.
and get very analytical
Yeah.
about it.
Yes.
And I mean, along the line of you know, plot and structure and the craft elements, did you, because the pacing seems so perfect, and I haven't plotted it myself,
Yeah.
which is really like that's the work me as an aspiring writer really needs to do, is like
Yeah.
take a book like this that works so well, you know, in terms of the pacing, plot,
Yeah.
structure, and actually plot it for myself to see. And I'm curious if you ever did that, and like, did you have an idea of like the three scenes, the 3-scene plot structure? I don't know if they
I don't even
address
know what
that.
that is.
Oh,
But
okay.
so I guess not. What we do is we will go through and like be very clear about like how many pages a certain chapter is, because just to make sure the pacing's right. Jess's chapters tended to be longer than Dr. Shields, but like you can't have a chapter that's, you know, if her chapters are 2 pages, to just make it kind of have a flow.
Sure.
We also the way we work is we talk and talk and talk about a chapter. So that's why when we start to write, I think that twin language comes, because we've
Sure.
spoken so much about the chapter before we even start to write it. And we are very conscious of how we're going to get into the chapter and how we're going to end the chapter.
Oh,
That's really important to us.
And you know that kind of ahead of time?
Yes.
Okay,
What's our
that's
end goal?
interesting.
What's our end goal for the end of this chapter?
So each chapter has its arc.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
in terms of the overall book
Yeah.
arc,
Yeah.
did you, so with each chapter you kind of know where you want to begin and end?
And we do that with the parts as well. Where do we think part 1 is going to end?
That's
Is that the question
that
we're trying to ask?
Yes, that was, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes, that is, so we have a sense of the beginning of what the part 1 is going to be in part, and we do write 3 parts books. That's
Oh, there
yeah.
it is. That is what 3 acts.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Yes,
okay,
yes, that's
cool.
what we're doing. Yes.
Oh, you
yes.
do?
Yes,
So
each
you
one is 3
decided
parts.
why, and so is that based on this plot and structure book or just?
No, I think that's based on Sarah. Maybe it's a Sarah.
Yeah, I mean that is sort of.
It's sort of standard.
It's sort of standard, right? It's sort of it's very standard, but like how many people don't actually do it?
Right.
That's why I was
Yeah.
curious if you did it, if that was conscious.
It is
in your
conscious,
process.
but I don't know why it became.
Okay,
but
right.
yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Sort of helps us break things down. I think that's the other thing. If you think about a whole book, it feels really overwhelming. Like when we're starting that, like any book, God, how are we going to ever get to, 400 pages? It's really daunting. You have to just think about it like sort of bit by bit.
And did you find? Because I also find that it seems that way in the beginning, and then by the end, you're like running out of words. Like you have you start going over. I mean, it's actually common to go over in words.
Oh, you mean make it too long?
Yeah.
But
But it sounds like you had the structure built in, so that would really limit you. You're not
I
like.
think so. We didn't. I don't think we've struggled with that so much.
Okay,
So
all right. I want to give time for the audience.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
there's a lot more to talk about. But okay, I think we talked about a lot of this. The outline, the craft, text. Okay. Well, I guess I do want to leave some time to talking about optioning a book for film.
Okay.
So you've got the Wife Between Us has been optioned for film, and I think The Honest Girl you're going to be for TV, right?
It was optioned to be a TV series by USA Network.
And I mean, when you talk about not having time to write because you're promoting, but
Yeah.
aren't you
Oh,
also
yeah,
writing a
that
screenplay and
yeah,
now
yeah.
actually writing a
Don't-
TV
Don't tell my
show?
editor. No, she knows. Yes. So we are writing. We're not writing a TV show. That
Not,
no.
okay. Oh, you're executive editor, executive producer.
Whatever
right?
that means, that is. We're like,
Okay, well-
we Google everything. Google's our best friend. We're like, Google, what does executive producer mean?
As you
It
can
means
tell
our,
what it means, you know.
it means that our name will be like, if it ever, if it gets made, our names will be like, on that, and right? That's good. That's pretty
It's
cool.
very good.
It's very good.
Yes.
And I think we can maybe earn some money if it ever gets
So do you have to
made.
do anything for that?
No, but we wanted as much collaboration as possible. Like we'd love for them to, turn to us for our thoughts and
Okay.
feelings.
So
So far
this
there hasn't been very much of that.
Okay, so this one has been optioned, so they have not yet, it's not in production, so what is it?
No, it was literally
process?
actually so first it was optioned by E1 Entertainment, which they are like, I guess they call them almost like a packager, and they found a husband and wife writing team who loved the book, and the husband and wife writing team went and pitched it to, like the Netflix and the Showtimes and the USA, and so USA is the ones who loved it the most and bought it. And so that literally just happened like a month ago. So, but it's also good for my publisher, right? It's great they can say it's an opportunity
Of
for a
course.
TV series. I mean, whether it happens.
Well, and also they can be, that can also sell more books, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully it will
Yeah.
sell. And then the movie was a little different because that when we sold the book to publishers, and that was very exciting. A lot of publishers wanted to buy The Wife Between Us. It leaked to Hollywood. And
So what does that mean? Like, so when it leaks,
yeah.
so I mean, just sort of getting into the nitty gritty of this.
Yeah.
So you, okay, so the agent, you had an agent, the agent sold it to the editor.
Yes.
And so at that point it's been bought.
Yes.
And it hasn't yet come out. So there's a period of time between when the book has been bought, the manuscript's been bought, but it has not come out.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a lot happened in that time.
Well, for us, a lot because we hadn't finished writing the book. But for anybody, even if you've finished your book, it can take about a year for a book to be published.
But in your case, I feel like I read that there was all of this buzz that happened.
Yeah.
So it was almost like, so it could debut. How
Yeah.
would a book, for example, debut on the New
Right,
York
so-
Times bestseller?
Because my publisher is amazing and they did everything possible. I mean, we gave them a lot. I mean, I think we gave them a great book, and the book had sold to film, so they were able to like capitalize on that. But they got out the book. Once it was done, they started to get all their sales reps to really read it really early on, and then they brought us into their office, and Sarah and they just brought a bunch of people in, and Sarah and I spoke, and I think then they realized, Sarah, you think I'm charming, you should see Sarah, she's really great. So they saw us together, and we're like, it's different. It's a different way to pitch a
You're
book.
soul sisters. Come
Yeah,
on.
we're soul sisters. and it's like a different way to tell a story. Like people really were interested in the way we did
Yeah,
this, so they were like, we could get them in front of people.
Right.
So they sent us out on this pre-tour, and we talked to lots of booksellers.
But this is I didn't know
this
how much
all
went on pre.
a lot before.
And actually, you're telling me then the book was sold to the movies
based on that
option
first part.
before it came out even.
Before we'd even finished the
Oh
book.
my gosh!
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's so
So,
interesting.
Yeah, that was, and so we spoke to film people, and they were really interesting because they then wanted input on parts 2 and 3. They were giving their suggestions on parts 2 and 3.
That was
which-
really helpful, actually, just from a.
It
or
was.
was it not?
It was really helpful. And then we rewrote it. She's like, but this isn't the ending I bought. And then we went back. That was really interesting.
That's so crazy.
But what they said, they gave us some key points, which was about like characters having agency. They speak in a different language, and it's actually helpful because our books are very, I think they're pretty cinematic and visual,
Yes.
and so you can see how they would be adapted. So their input was actually helpful. They're very smart. They think about things in a different way.
in a fast, quick.
But so the book sold, and then they tried to find writers to adapt The Wife Between Us, and they really couldn't find anyone who could kind of figure out the take on it. And so then Holly Berrio, who's the head producer on it, asked Sarah and I to meet with her. And Sarah and I had been on tour, and we were like, we met Holly in New York. We fly into LaGuardia. We are pulling out like crumpled, stained dresses, like we're going to meet like the head of Amblin, and we're like in a bathroom stall getting dressed. Like, what does this look okay? Is this okay?
Aw.
And we go and we meet Holly, and she was so great and real. And she's like, I wanted to meet with you guys because I wondered if you guys would want to take a stab at trying to write the screenplay.
Wow.
And so, and this Sarah loves this part because Sarah of course was like, yes, and I was like, we need to think about it. So
Like any good marriage, you
Yeah,
guys
right.
right. each other.
so we thought about it, and then we wrote our first draft, which
Okay, so I've pause on this.
Yeah.
So, she's written some novels, you've
Yeah.
written now this bestseller, but you've been in the publishing world,
Yeah.
and you sort of cavalier say to us,
Yeah.
well, we read our first draft of a screenplay.
Yeah.
That's another whole new thing.
yeah.
Did you Google that? You must
Yeah, we
have
did.
Googled that.
Got right to it. Sarah, in her spare time, used to like write screenplays for fun. Like,
Oh
she
my
was,
gosh,
yeah,
I know. Oh,
She-
but that's really helpful
Yeah.
in terms of her structure and pacing
She
and
did.
everything else.
So she had way more of a beat on how to do
Okay.
that than I did.
And that's a real formula too, really a formula.
Definitely a formula. You really have to. I mean, there's no, it's pretty much all dialogue. You've got to distill your
Yeah.
book down to 120 pages. So that we really did have to plot out. We took like our favorite scenes. Look, we didn't. They want something totally different, so I can't say we're very successful at that. We did what they actually had asked us to do, but now they think it should be something different, which I've heard is also pretty.
I mean, I just know, I can say that people who work in the industry, it's all collaborative and it goes through a million, it's writing by committee, it's
Yeah.
quite different.
It's
From,
yeah. So,
um,
but it's fun. We're just I like just like being creative, and it just like that's a new skill. And just the screenplay was just pure. It was actually pure fun, and it was taking
that's great.
and it was taking your material and then just trying to like kind of rejigger it and figure out how to make it work. So it was just kind of you tapping into a different part of our brain. So we had a great time.
I have two more questions, then we'll go to the artist.
Okay.
So one of them, I didn't, you cannot answer this one if you don't want. Because I'm just listening to this and I'm very impressed by how many new things you're taking on. You're basically going outside your comfort zone over and over and over and over again.
Yeah,
And so my question is, are you basically like an anxious person or not?
I'm a
Because-
very anxious
See
person.
that is what I
Okay.
didn't want to hear that.
I'm very, very.
How do
Look,
you
I was okay.
get past this?
Okay, I was in the same company for 20 years. I am risk averse to the nth degree.
Oh my gosh.
It's finding Sarah. We got a t-shirt to say better together. I'm crying. Literally, I'm crying. Like we are because we jumped off a cliff together.
Wow, oh my god.
And also, what's the worst that could happen is that it wouldn't work. This is where she's great. Like, let's just try it. If they don't like the screenplay, who cares? What difference does it make? So, like, why not write a book together? What else was I doing? I know it was so much better to do it with her, to have someone by your side. When you're struggling, and you can just turn to someone else and say, oh my God, I have no idea what we're going to do. Then there's someone like, hey, well, we're going to figure it out.
That's something. Well, that is a truly beautiful story. No, it really is. I mean, it's really kind of magical,
I know, and I'll say is like we were going through, like both of us, we were going through some really hard things, like personally, and like we just really were there for each other.
Girlfriends.
So,
That's okay for the guys out there. We'll be your friends too. But that is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so just one last question
Okay.
about Anonymous Girl, which is and I don't know. I'm gonna let you answer this however you'd like, because
Okay.
I don't want it to be a spoiler.
Yeah.
But we do, now that we've revealed that there are two female protagonists.
I'll forget you for that.
Yes, and one of them is Jess, who's young, kind of young, but really interesting. There's the person with power is a woman.
Mhm.
So that's kind of, you're not taking a typical, male-female power dynamic, but it is happening in the Me Too era.
Yeah.
And this exploration of power dynamics between people of different stature or with different status is fascinating. You take that and you really explore it in interesting ways. And was that something you did consciously, or did that just I just wonder.
Well, we knew we wanted, so in our first book, it's not, I don't know if this is giving too much away to say that it's like a relationship, it's a husband and wife dynamic so it was, opposite sex, power play. And so we just wanted to do something different, which is why we had it be two women. But actually, when you had asked me about the Me Too part, I was thinking of a different thing.
Okay, yes, but I don't know if I could talk about that,
Yeah,
because
no,
that's
we
too
should.
far along.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
I think
spot.
we
That's
should.
why I
Yeah. I just think it was just, I don't think it was so much about the power dynamic. It was about, I think, the vulnerability and like what gets you to release your secrets to someone. Like what is in Jess that it's alluring to her. She feels like someone is listening to her for the first time. And everybody wants to be heard, right? And she's held these secrets so closely together. So how this person can kind of like nestle them, out of her. But obviously she's, there for Dr. Shields too. So.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that came to me is just the way you were talking about that. I just had this awareness too that, it's kind of cool that you wrote that you didn't write this when you were 22. That you have some real life experience. Yeah. Of being in a marriage, of raising children, of being in the workforce, of having all this richness of life. Yeah. That really comes. I think that really filters through, which is really kind of cool and inspiring too. I think. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like to talk about before we?
No, let's open up. I love answering questions.
Okay.
So let's.
All right. Anyone have anything you'd like to ask? Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about the Post-it note whiteboard concept.
Okay. And thank you.
How many Post-its?
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is also so funny. So, the person whose city is being visited is supposed to be the person responsible for writing the giant Post-its, the big ones. And my joke is like I always buy like the nice ones, and Sarah buys like the cheap ones that like flutter to the ground. I'm like, Sarah, you need to up your game with the Post-its. So we take them and this is you asked about our similarities and differences. Yeah. So one thing, first of all, I am more analytical. Sarah's more instinctive, which you may have gathered from all this. But she is like Carrie Matheson in Homeland, where like the whiteboards are like the Post-its are like all over. It looks like it's just. It's a little messy, and I'm like going around like straightening them up behind her because I'm like I can't concentrate like this. But she says she sees like patterns, and that she sees like it helps her.
That's so different. Well, this is helpful for the messy people in my life because I'm definitely like you.
Yeah.
Like no, I'm like oh.
Yeah. But it really helps her. So that's where we try to do like our big plotting because sometimes you just can't see things on a computer screen that you can see when it's like when it's out on a piece of paper, right? So it helps us to be able to just kind of like brainstorm other ideas or just try to plot. So it depends on what we're not super systematic about when we see each other because like with kids and touring, it's not always at the beginning of a part or this. When we first did our first book, we were able to coordinate that more, but now it's sort of catch. Yeah.
But that's it's interesting when you just said that you can't always see things on a computer screen. Yeah. And I know for many people here, maybe even just grew up on the computer screen, but they now know that neurologically there's actually a brain-hand connection to handwriting something. It actually creates these connections. Yeah. So I mean the physicality of actually standing up. I mean I'm sure there's stuff going on physiologically with that that's actually really making connections.
Absolutely. And sometimes when we're like kind of lost, we'll like there's sometimes a lot to keep track of in our books, and we'll like we will literally like write it, like not just. We'll either retype things on the computer or we'll literally handwrite it. Like if she's this age and this is this, like in one of our messy notebooks. So
so in terms of all of the plot twists here, that everything comes together so beautifully. Did you have that somehow mapped? Or even like after the fact? Like other than that, you have very, very steel trap brains.
No, not at all. No. We joke that we have one brain, but it takes both of our brains to keep track of everything.
That helps.
It does, but we do. We sit there and have to, especially like again with wife too. We'd be like, does this make sense? Does this make sense? Does this? But we reread constantly. Like we're working away, but then we'll go. So we work together from let's say 9 to 4 on a good day. But we both go in early in the morning. I mean, I was up at 7:30 this morning editing pages, and I do it all in suggested mode, and then she'll go in and accept or reject, and I was like, why did she reject that? So we'll work at weird hours to go in and add more, just make notes, and we're constantly sending each other. Like here's a podcast you should listen to. I'm podcast obsessed.
Can we just throw a few podcasts out there for those of us who are trying to get into it but are not very good at it?
Oh yeah, well I mean I listen to a lot of like NPR politics podcasts. Okay. I listen to How I Built This, which is all like entrepreneurial like startups. I listened to Happier in Hollywood, which is about these two showrunners and their collaboration, which I find fascinating. I listened to just the Happiness Project, Gretchen Rubin, who I just love.
Yeah,
I
that's
love her.
great.
I had to read her first book.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. And then I listened to I listened to Serial. I listened to Homeland. I listened to a lot of
in your free
fictional.
time, yes.
When I fall sleeping, or when I'm walking the dog, or exercising, whatever. So, I find it very soothing.
So in your collaboration, do you guys give yourself a timeline? Like, we're gonna have a first draft in 6 months, or how do you stay on track?
Well, so for the first book, we didn't have a deadline in a way because we wrote part 1 until we felt like it was ready to be submitted, and then we did have a deadline for parts 2 and 3. But we gave ourselves plenty of time because the publisher didn't want to publish it for nearly until. We just had a lot of time.
How much is a lot of time?
So we
5 years?
No. So we had finished. Yeah, I guess it's not a lot, but we had finished. We sold the book on May 25th. We had until January to finish parts 2 and 3. So, you do the math. I counted my fingers too.
Okay, 7 months. That's
To
not
do-
a lot.
It felt like fine. It was enough
good.
time.
Oh, yeah, actually, you had an all day write. I
We
forgot that.
had all day, and we also had. We in theory had it plotted out.
Yes,
so that was fun.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
Then, because the first book had done so well, they wanted the second book to come out in January. So we had like a year, and but somehow this book we struggled for a while trying to figure out what it was going to be. But once we did, it came quite quickly. Okay, now book 3, which was like sort of due, like in 2 weeks. I mean, we literally, I'm not kidding when I say we have like 30 pages. So we have more than those pages that we're not going to use, and we have thought about it, but we're really under the gun. So I actually literally feel sick. So
Okay, but I'm curious. Like, I look at Marilyn Robinson, one of my favorite authors,
Yes.
who's written like 3 books in her whole life.
Yeah.
Okay, but then each one is absolutely brilliant.
yeah.
So you're under like what exactly is that pressure? I mean, I know is it a momentum? But is it a momentum thing?
Yeah,
Is that real though? Like if it took, for example, 2 years instead of 1 year between books, would people truly have forgotten about you and they wouldn't read the 3rd book? Like, what's that about?
I don't know.
I forget about it.
I don't know. Well, you know what? I don't know.
Yes.
We don't want to let our editor down. I was an editor. I feel like I
But
sometimes
maybe
I'm
she's being unrealistic.
No, she's been very kind. She's so great.
But to expect a book every year, is
I
that
know.
realistic?
For some people,
But
maybe
it's not.
I don't
I'm
know.
sorry,
I don't
this is
know.
great.
It's all going up on YouTube. Generally, I love you. I'm doing everything I can. I should be writing.
She's working so hard. Like, you see what she's going through.
You're up at 7:30 in the morning.
You're exhausted listening to her.
I'm doing circles over my eyes. I'm working as hard as I can.
And she's here. Oh my God.
I'm doing the best I can.
Are you gonna kick me out now?
I don't know. We're gonna get it done. I feel it. I was feeling really good this morning. It's all coming together. Okay.
Any questions?
I don't
More
know.
questions?
Whatever. I'm very ambitious. What can I
Okay.
say? I'm ambitious.
Well, yeah, you put a lot of pressure on yourself.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to make a post-it question.
Oh yeah, the postage. Yes.
Can you share, if you're willing, just
Yeah.
what specifically is on the
Post-its?
Yeah, what do you,
Okay.
is it a seed?
Okay. This like for anonymous, when we were like brainstorming. I mean, it's everything from like we're like knife or gun, blood. I mean, certain like sex objects. We were like thought we were gonna make Jess like more like sexy or whatever. Like just like throwing all these like just crazy ideas, like kind of just stream of consciousness. And I will say, Sarah was supposed to take the post-its down. I was in DC, and we're always in a frantic frenzy to get work done and me to make the train. She forgot to take them down. I thought I was going to be on like a whatever, do not fly list.
God knows what was on those post-its.
So, but it might be like here's act 1, act 2. It might be specific. It just depends on where we are in the process. Just sort of a free form brainstorming, trying to tap into different sort of like different creative juices. So again, it was a lot more systematic with part one, with the first book than now when we just don't have that luxury. Like we have to get together. Then we do these like writing binges and we just wear exercise clothes and don't leave the hotel. Yeah.
And you had a question, Megan?
So as far as like your revision process,
Yeah.
did you find that it was harder with another person or easier because you were an editor? Like, what is your revision process like?
Harder with another person, meaning with
Like,
my
versus
co-writer?
just- Yeah.
With, well, no, I mean, I feel like everything is easier when you have, for me, having a partner. But again, I don't think that's for everyone. I think some people would kill each other. They would just be like, I don't think it should be this way. For us, if we disagree on something, if one of us doesn't feel like it's working, then we both agree it's not working. And so, yeah, we know that something is not working. And then we just talk and talk and talk and talk about it. So there's nothing that we would let that we can argue our points, and we might say, let's put kind of a pin in this one and maybe come back to it. So that's really helpful. But in terms of revising, I think that we love being edited. I mean, to have an outside perspective. We have, with both books, the first two books, we had both an outside editor who read it before we even gave it to our editor, because as an editor, there's just a limited capacity, and our editor is also the publisher, so we always want to give her things in as great shape as possible. And also we had beta readers, so like I have a lot of smart friends, and I would give them the book too, and they weren't really making major changes, but some of it was because we go so many twists and turns. Sometimes we lose perspective on, does this make any sense? Has the pace too slow and they've already guessed it, or are we going too quickly and they don't understand what's happened? And so we would rely on the kind of just the smart readers to give us a sense of that as well.
It's hard when you're living a book, like
You don't
24
lose
hours.
hours.
Yeah, of course you lose
Yeah.
perspective. You have to get some kind of outside. So it's interesting
Yeah.
that you had not only the editor, but the beta readers, and for us, my workshops are so
Yeah,
important.
really helpful.
Really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, and people pick up, and some people get really, are nuanced on, on finding just specific things, and some are more big picture, but there's something you can kind of glean, and then you just ignore sometimes things don't feel right, so.
So I think you started to answer this, but I think what a lot of people like about writing is, unlike your day job, you're not necessarily writing for other people, you sort of have that freedom. But did you feel like at times, because you were you writing for each other at times? Did you find that constraining, or how did you decide together who to write for, what type of audience to write for?
Interesting question.
I feel like we're kind of writing for what we would want to read. So that's why it's, I think, just been really fun. And that I would say to anybody, when you pick a topic, you really are going to have to live with this for a very long time, and then you're going to have to talk about it over and over again. So just be really passionate about whatever it is that that you're choosing. So I don't feel like we picked a specific audience. We just picked what kind of a story that we wanted to tell. And I figured I'm not very unique, so other people, if I like it, other people might like it too.
Well, it was interesting too when you gave the list of books that you both kind of liked, and of course you edited her, so you liked her writing, so you had that sensibility.
Yeah.
So we would sort of naturally go, like I know at one point I decided I was going to try to write romance, and I read lots of Danielle Steele, and which is not what I normally read, and I tried to write, and it was impossible. It's impossible, so you kind of almost can only write what you can write.
Yes, right. I agree. I agree.
Yeah. So.
Anyone else?
I have a question about
Oh, yeah.
shared character creation and what it's like to with the co-writer creating a character. It seems to me that it's easier to do the plotting together, the two people doing this together than when the plot transpires. But with character creation, you can kind of create that character from the outside in, or you can create that character from the inside out. And did you guys sit down and you figured out what the character looked like, and what her habits were, and what her background was, and then delved into how she was internally? Or did you both sit down and get an internal sense of a particular character and then go from that sense to figuring out her exterior attributes?
I feel like it's sort of simultaneous. So, for example, in The Wife Between Us, we knew that we wanted the character to be like this young woman who was about to get married, and she was going to be like with this kind of controlling Nance, and one of the first images that we ever thought of for that character was the husband. She's taking her hair and saying, "So beautiful, don't ever cut it," and like taking a lock of it, and that was one of the first images for that character. So it helped inform her physically, but also kind of her sensibility. But we talk about everything. I mean, I can tell you what Dr. Shields eats for breakfast. I can tell you how much she weighs. We love talking. We talk about what our characters wear. We'll literally walk down the street and be like, "That's something that Jess would wear. That's something this." Like we had like someone came up to us, started reading, and Sarah and I were both like, "That is Nellie. Like she looks just like Nellie."
Wow.
So, but I think because we both love psychology and we obsess. I mean, part of our main character, part of our book 3 that we're struggling with, I feel like, is that we couldn't nail the main character. We kept trying to make her something that, frankly, we couldn't really relate to, and I think that was part of what really was we struggled because we were struggling with her voice because we just couldn't figure out exactly who she was. That's a really good question, really interesting.
And then I have one question about how did you find your, I guess we call it development editor?
Yeah, our freelance editor came through our agent. So some agents really do a lot of editing, and our agent is brilliant and wonderful, but she's not an editor. She just knew that it wasn't working, so she put us in touch with Benet, who was very, I would say, is a very good scene editor. That's how I would describe her.
Is that a question, Will? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, sorry.
So, I'm somewhat new to the fiction world, but like in nonfiction, it feels like people will write back to you like 3 days later if they like your pitch or whatever. Like, do you have any sense from your time in the editing world, like how quickly are you hearing from people if they're like, "This is awesome," you know?
An agent, you mean, or
I
an
guess so.
editor?
You can, right? They're mostly only pitching agents for fiction, right?
And with agents, are you have you pitched at all or no? I just
Not in
Okay.
fiction, no.
So it's a little like I never really had to do that because I just go on to Sarah's agent. But I think fiction tends to take longer, especially if you've written the whole thing. Although usually an agent isn't going to want to see the whole thing. They'll probably just ask to see a synopsis. Then they might ask for 3 chapters, and they might ask for more. And then I think it really depends. It can really depend. I think some stuff just gets kind of, looked at really quickly, and some stuff I think gets tucked away, and it depends on the agent and their process, and it depends on if you have any connection to the agent. So I think it can really vary. And the same thing with books selling to editors. I think if you have an agent who's really well known and they really pitch you up with a lot of hype, your book could get read, in 24 hours, and then if not, your book could be put on. I mean, speaking as an editor, sometimes if I didn't know the agent, I didn't know the author, and I had 27, other things to read and books to edit, it could sit on that book. It could sit on that shelf for a long time. So,
And I think just from that's changed too. It's great that people can submit digitally now, so you can submit it more to more people. But the downside of that is it used to be you would always get a response, and actually now agents will even say they don't even respond if they're not interested. So that's tough, because it can be, if they do respond, it could be 6 months, or 3 months or whatever it is they'll say. But if they say if they don't necessarily even send a form response, you don't know how long you're waiting. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of, but you can find all this. I mean, they all have that information on their submission website.
And if you're trying to find an agent, my best advice is to look in the acknowledgement sections of books that are similar to yours and that you really like, and then write to them. And the more specific, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but just if you can flatter them, be specific. I love this author of yours. I think my book is like this person's because XYZ. I mean, don't oversell yourself because nobody's, it's not. I'm sure Stephanie Kip-Rotzen, who's the agent for, Gillian Flynn, if you're like, this is the next Gone Girl, she's going to be like, throw it in the garbage.
Yeah.
But if you can find, another, some smaller comparisons, just do your homework.
Yeah. So do you think? I mean, how important do you think comps as when you were an editor? How important was the comps? Hugely important. Yeah. That's something I was discussing.
People, editors, agents, everybody wants to know it's how to pitch it. And make it as easy for the agent, the editor as possible. With that said, you do look like you just can't compare yourself to some of these huge blockbuster
Nice
books.
Harry Potter.
Right, exactly. You're gonna be laughing about, but so.